I'm just trying to think of what I can do. Oh, anyway. Hello and welcome to Attached Past. My name is Ben. I am joined by... Not Beth today. I'm joined by Sam. How's it going?
Hello. I'm not Beth.
You indeed are not Beth. I followed through on what I said last week. I did get rid of Beth.
Yeah.
And I've replaced her, upgraded her, enhanced, less hair, but more personality. No, I'm joking. She's not even here. She'll be listening, sat on a beach somewhere, and I'll just get a text message that'll say, "Why did you do this to me?"
Yeah, we'll both be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, no, it'll be both of us. She'll come back next week for Pokemon and just be like, "You two, outside now," and we'll just get she might be small, but she's very, very mighty. Anyway, I'm joined by Sam this week. He's stepping in for Beth because she is off on
Adventures
for work.
Yeah, what's that?
I don't know. No, I know what work is. She's claiming work. I reckon it's a holiday, really. It's definitely no Pokemon involved though, which is unfortunate. You've very kindly stepped in for us, Sam, which is great. Thank you very much for coming down.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You before we start, I guess you won our giveaway, which was weird.
Yeah, I was saying that we'll get onto it, but I'd had some bad luck and some good luck this week, I guess.
Very, very weird. How now people will be like, "Oh my god, he's rigged." Not only does he win it, he's now on the podcast. No, Sam's just actually a close friend. When it comes to Pokemon, you test with us as well, and we come up with stupid. Well, I say we. You come up with stupid ideas,
and then I inflict them on you.
Yep, and then we see how we deal with it, and then I make bad deck list choices because of silly decks that I've had to play against.
Hey, I mean, I played a lot of Sablezard into you, and you played a lot of Sablezard at Liverpool.
Yeah, and it worked out. It actually worked out pretty well, except the final round, which I nearly made day 2. But go back and watch episode 1 or 2. No, episode 1. Go back and watch episode 1 of the podcast to hear about my tales at Liverpool. You yourself went to Liverpool, didn't you?
I did.
How'd we get on?
I was very, very middle of the road with 3 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws. I think I finished almost, or very close to the middle of the pool as well. It was like 760 something out of like 1,500. So
that's not too bad.
I very much managed mid-table.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a mid-table podcast or mid-tier podcast by mid-tier players. So
I fit right in.
You are in the middle of the podcast, Sam. In fact, move all this stuff out to get you sat in the middle. Well, I mean, did you enjoy Liverpool?
Yes, yeah.
Even going 3-3-3, was that not a dampener? Was it a buff? Did you not care?
I mean, it was my first regional, or haven't been to an international or any big Pokemon events. It was nice to get to play and sort of see how that all goes. And a couple of my rounds I probably could have won. And a couple of my rounds, including one of my draws, was a literal top deck on last turn of turns, which I feel sorry for the person I played against. But hey, that's how.
You also
that's how it goes. Yeah,
it's a card game. Like
exactly.
You absolutely top deck that boss to win game, or that 1 energy, or whatever that you need.
It was a top deck of Roaring Moon into Mew. They judged me into everything else. I just didn't have an Attackroid to get it yet. Yep, there we go.
So you had like what, Dark Energy, Mirage Gate, and a Switch or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, no, I just need a Moon. There's no Nest Ball. Oh wait, it's here. Bang, death. Yeah, no, that's fair.
It was quite a short game, so I think I still had like 20-something cards left in deck. Like, it really wasn't very it wasn't like I had like 2 cards left in deck.
Wow.
Into 50-50. It was like...
You literally had like a 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 chance maybe to be able to pull off this top deck. And you only run a 1-off in that deck, didn't you?
I ran 2.
Oh, you ran 2 in that. Oh, you were okay.
Too bad. One of them was in the lost zone, though.
Well, I guess, right, so... We've completely deviated from the plan already.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's the great thing about the podcast. Out the window. Deck building with Sam, right? It's my favourite thing to do. Only because you come up with some weird, wacky things, but also you put a lot of logic into stuff. So, like we're putting the second moon in, it means you can lost zone 1 early, and people expect it to be gone.
Yeah.
They don't expect it again. And then all of a sudden you can be like, they play, a bit looser, like more aggressive or whatever, and put themselves in a space where only Roaring Moon would be able to win here. And then you go, oh, cool, yeah, Moon, dead. And you're like, what? Because I think we did it in testing a couple of times. I didn't know that you were playing 2, and you played the 1, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, I've got rid of that now. And then you're just like, kabam, here's another one. I'm like, oh, I lose. Great.
Or the sort of back-to-back turns of you've just not won out, and you super rod like some energy back, and then okay, and
And here's the other one. Yeah,
yeah.
and here we go. And you claw it back. Oh, no. Ugh. PTSD from some nights, honestly. Was playing games against each other.
So unfortunately, none of the matches at Liverpool went as well as some of our testing. Some of those testing rounds were short.
Very.
Because the deck ran pristinely.
Yeah, like if there was a min-max opportunity for that deck to run, it seemed to run it in our testing nearly all the time. Well, it felt like all the time from my perspective. It was like, I just can't get away from this. You've always got the Zard. You've always got the Roaring Moon whenever you need it. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is me. Lost this game. Yay.
when I had some incredible luck in testing when we did the couple of tests when I was playing Miraidon.
Yes.
And I think I hit all double energies off of the generators.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this is why I don't play Miraidon, because this would never pan out.
Because when you're in an actual tournament and playing against actual people, it's just like, no, these are not yours. They are my energy. Silly deck.
Yeah, I think when I last tested Miraidon, I think I hit 1 energy off of 4.
Oof.
It's just like, yeah, do you know what? Put this deck away.
Just
you can have this back.
Just open the bin and then just slide it off the table into the bin. And just be like, oh, see you later. Yeah, okay, fair play. Well, we've deviated massively. I had a whole plan for this episode, and I think it's already going to go out the window, which is absolutely fine. So for those of you that are still with us after that massive little tangent, we're going to start with a quick look at Japan. Actually, do you know what? Well, I'm going to add a bit in here. I haven't prepped you for this, and I'm so sorry.
Panic.
We're going to talk about you for a little bit. Because I realised you're new to the podcast. I know who you are. I know what's happened. The people that are listening don't. So we'll do a quick synopsis of who you are, how you got into Pokemon, that sort of thing. Then we're going to talk about Japan and the Champions League tournament that was over there, which was won by a big bird, and it's back, and it's scary, and I don't like it.
Not a fan.
We'll talk about that later on. You've brought something to the table for Hear Me Out. Whether it's good or bad or ugly, we don't know yet. But we'll see.
I've got a couple of things, because I think there's 2 that will be really quick. So I've got 2 ideas that I think you'll just go, yep, agree, and 1 that you'll look at me and walk off, and then that'll be the end of the podcast.
2 that you just like hard yeses, and 1 that will just crumble me to death. Yeah, okay, we'll go through that. And then also, I thought we might be able to round off this episode with quick looks at. I've got myself an EUIC ticket. If you get yourself a ticket in the last minute, for example, if they open up more. Then we'll talk about what you might want to take. If you're cool with that?
Yeah.
Sounds great. All right, so then we'll start off with yourself, Sam. How on earth did you get into this wonderful world and amazing game of Pokemon? Where did it start?
I got into Pokemon as a friend who you know well, was playing the game, or got into the game himself about this time last year, I think.
Wow, so it's really not very long.
And then, was sort of, saying, did I want to come along, play some games, and show me the game, and it seemed fun. Many, many years ago, I used to play Magic the Gathering, and I played that on and off, and sort of played various online versions of the game, and lots of love for that game. However, one thing I will say, if you're not sort of familiar with Magic the Gathering, is it's not the cheapest game in the world. We'll say that. The secondary market for buying stuff, you can happily spend a couple of £100 on a deck, whereas you could pretty much buy a big chunk of the meta in Pokemon for the same price. I have a number of decks where the sleeves cost a comparable amount to the contents of the deck.
Yeah, well, I mean that's one of the things I love about Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the same with I've just started getting into Digimon too. I know this isn't a Digimon podcast. I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to say I'm comparing it as it's a cheap card game to get into. Like, you could build Charizard in Pokemon for £45.
Yeah.
Like, all in. And the most expensive bit of that is the 3 Charizards, and they cost you 15 of that 45. Whereas you look at Magic, we took we were pricing up a trade-in in store, and one commander deck was like £700.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh. And it's like, it's not even, like, it's a good deck, but it's not even the good deck. Like, it's not some, like, CEDH stuff.
No, and, I mean, in the same way that for people who aren't aware, for Magic, Pokemon has the standard format and then has extended format. Magic has a number of other formats, and some of those formats are, as old as extended would be for Pokemon.
As old as time itself.
I mean, pretty much in the case of Legacy, right?
Yeah.
That's old. But some of those, the cost of modern decks and Legacy decks starts to get crazy.
Yeah.
And it's understandable. Some of that stuff's been out of print for 15, 20, 30 years.
Keep going.
Depending on what format you're playing.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
You know, in the case of certain cards, they made like a few thousand of them 30 years ago, and good luck. But
yeah,
you know, when that's like you need this for your deck, it does cause problems. Whereas with Pokemon, you know, the format's nice, standards in a really good state, and
very
good. It was in a good state last year. I think there was a couple of bits where, you know, it kind of ground itself down to just 3 decks at the tail end of last year.
Yep.
At the moment, there's a silly number of decks that are
9 to 11 or something stupid.
I mean, when we were looking at testing, I think it was it 16 that we came up with, that like if somebody played it against you, you wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't expect it to win the event,
but you wouldn't. Yeah.
But like you kind of wanted to know what your game plan was against Clorf Electrode.
Yeah.
And you know, if you've got that many decks to play against, it is nice. There are some problems, I think, with that, where it kind of becomes impossible to tech for anything and everything, and so sometimes you can kind of end up with, how did this deck do so well? Because nobody took the chance to tech for it.
Yeah, of course. Or it just didn't hit everything that did tech for it, for example. Yeah.
I mean, the was it the Gdansk regional where the person who won it played Snorlax, and I think on day 2 he played. It was like 3 or 4, or there's like a good number of Charizards that they played on day 2, and at the time Charizards weren't really many switching options. So
it was a free win for Snorlax.
Yeah, it was just a free win for that deck at that point.
Yeah.
You know, and so lucky runs like that definitely do improve your odds of winning the event. You know, you've still got to be an incredible player to win it. I'm not trying to say, you know, just pure luck and anything like that. But no, you do have to be good. But
there is definitely an element of luck to winning an event. Like you could be the best player in the world, but if you hit every bad matchup that you could possibly ever have, then you're just not going to win it.
Yeah, and you know, if you just have bad draws, or you just have really bad, you know, starting hands and that kind of thing, sometimes you can just miss tempo. And
luck isn't paramount to winning an event. I will caveat this whole sentence that I'm about to say with that. Like, you don't have, like, it's not just, oh, you're lucky, that's why you won. But there is an element to it. That's why we play the game, you know?
Yeah.
Randomized decks, we try and build a deck so that we can find that perfect set of cards, that perfect amalgamation of how they work together, and try and reduce that randomness as much as possible. However, it still exists, and you have to be lucky to not just draw Mana Fee 6 energy in your opening hand. Like, unlikely, but still lucky. It's good that has happened.
Yeah, and I think that makes for some interesting deck building and trying to say, you know, what do you put in terms of consistency options? What do you put in terms of options for dealing with whatever your opponent's doing?
Yeah.
What are your like recovery and options in that regard? And all of those things do make for some interesting balance in deck building, certainly, and having those sort of interesting one-offs and tech cards, as well as like exactly how many, you know, search cards do you run, exactly how much, you know, energy search do you run, or whatever.
Am I running energy search yourself? Like, is it worth it? No, it's not. Just draw into it. It's fine.
Yeah, but with that, you know, how am I drawing into it, or, you know, am I just, you know, or am I accelerating it straight to my hand in the case of Chien-Pao, or straight to the board in the case of Charizard? And it's just like, I just run like 6 and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
And just hope you don't prize 6 energy and go for the search and go,
oops. Hopefully you've nest ball before that, though, to be able to go, okay, I'm going to lose this game. Scoop, go next. I really like that in the meta at the moment, in terms of, like, you know, there is so many different ways to build decks, and we've even seen, we were talking about having like 16 decks or whatever that were big hitters or potential things that we might face at Liverpool or regionals like that. But one of the things I like is the different sort of tweaks and changes everybody's doing. Like, you always have this, but for some reason I think it's more noticeable at the moment because there's more players, so we have more decks with 1 or 2 cards different here, or some people even pivoting entire, like, supporting Pokemon lines away to be able to put something else in. You know, like we saw the evolution of, like, Goldengo, for example. It wasn't running Palkia. Now it is incredible with running Palkia because you have access to the one thing the Goldengo was really struggling, which was super early game pressure in the Greninja and things like... You know, there's all that sort of stuff there that we see, these sort of slight changes here and there that people do to certain decks that we like, oh, this is solved, or this is where it stops, and that sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden something new comes in. Somebody has had a fever dream that, take that 1 energy out and just hear me out, add a worker, or you know, something like that, and then all of a sudden it changes the stats and the math so much that it makes it worth it. And I really like that. I think that's a really relatively healthy place for the meta to be in. and I'm a little bit scared about rotation, to be fair, on how we're going to do. But I guess, yeah.
We'll get on to
We'll get onto that. So you started about a year ago.
Yeah.
You've come with us to Liverpool. You come nearly every week as much as you can to play here locally with us at Sanctuary Gaming Centre in Nashville. Come along. It's on a Wednesday. Starts at 6:30. It's £6 to enter. You get a booster pack. It's great. Tio's a bit of an idiot, but we'll go with that.
I'll probably be there.
Yeah, Sam will probably be there. Beth will almost certainly be there, except if you come this week, she won't be here. But yeah, so you're enjoying it, clearly.
Yeah, massively.
Has it become part of your life that you think won't go away until they massively mess up the meta now? Or is it like, have you made friends through it that you would consider like are real friends? You know what I mean? Like real, like you have hobby friends, right? Like you have people that you will only do a hobby with, but then there are people that I would go out for a beer with, or, you know, and they're a different kind of friend. And that sounds really weird to say.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, myself and Beth in that. Yeah.
Go for a beer after this if you want.
Go on.
Sorry, an apple juice, kids. An apple juice.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, a number of sort of in that same vein, sort of hobby friends in that same way. And, you know, really welcoming community, I will say, for Pokemon, which has been fantastic. And yeah, definitely plan on sticking around at least for a while.
Amazing.
You know, assuming they don't, you know, completely ruin the meta or something. But I can't, at least at the moment, I can't see that being an issue.
Even with rotation, right?
Even with rotation. There's a couple of things that kind of strike me that could be interesting.
Yep.
One of them is on the wall over there, and, you know,
I have no idea what you're on about.
Could it not?
You can't see it on the my view, but you can see it if we. No, you can't. You can't even see it.
No,
do you know what? I'm just gonna take it off, and then I'm just gonna sit here with it.
Yeah, I was so happy it had gone away.
I was too. I guess this is a good segue into the Japan Champions League. It doesn't even want to be off the wall. Why have I touched it? What have I done? Anyway.
How was it on the wall? Because the hook's upside down too.
Yeah, the one at the top keeps it on, and the one at the bottom's...
Oh, okay, it's that way.
Magic.
Yeah.
Magic. Yes, so the Champions League... I'm just going to sit and hold this now. The Champions League over in Japan, we saw 2,655
Big
players. That's
event.
Massive.
Big event.
That's huge. Like, post-rotation, remember Japan are on a different rotation here to here over in the West.
They had...
Yep, the West.
Yeah.
Sorry,
just double check.
This thing's putting me off slightly.
You can put it down.
No, it has to stay here, Sam. Look,
okay.
The people must know that Lugia is back.
Yeah.
And we're saying this because it won.
Like, it did win.
Let's not mess about with it. It just won.
And it's been it was really convincing in a lot of the rounds that it was shown in, and it's been doing very, very well at Japanese locals. Now, it does acquire some new tech. I don't know if you want to do the magic. And
yeah, well, I mean...
I'll make some editing work for you, since I'm on.
Put
it on the screen.
Do it, boy. Monkey sing, monkey dance. So it'll be on my right-hand side here. But one of the biggest parts... In fact, let's just run through the list first for the winner. We usually go second, then first. Let's do first, then second this time. Only because this is a really big talking point. Lugia was in the meta, for those of you that aren't aware, 8 months ago?
Yeah.
And dominating. Like,
I think that
scary.
Was... Yeah, the last meta was kind of Lugia. Mew was present, but Lugia was dominating.
Yep.
And there were lost box decks floating about, including Tina.
Yep.
But they were also kind of present. Lugia was, 40-ish, 40+% at various tournaments, which is not
scary.
The healthiest, and kind of the opposite of what we've got at the minute, where you know, they're kind of getting onto, you know, hey, we've got this many decks, and by the way, we're going to put a page 2 up because there's not really that many less people playing them.
Of course. I mean, to be fair, the thing that sort of, I guess, stopped Lugia from being Lugia was Miraidon, right? Like when that first came in and Scarlet and Violet base set came out and people started to solve the Miraidon deck, that sort of put a massive spanner in its works, only because it's weak to lightning. And with Miraidon being so consistent at getting that turn 1 attack off, if you've got a V stranded in the active, it's a free 2 prizes for them. And then you've got to make sure you've got 2 Lugia V set up so you can V-star to at least one of them if one of them gets knocked out, so you can get the Archeops out, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of like different ways that, the Miraidon just undid what Lugia was trying to do. It was almost starving itself by only ever setting up one Lugia V, hoping it's on the bench and hoping nobody hits it.
Yeah.
And now we just sort of see it come back mostly because of one particular card. Let's not like realistically, it's one card, isn't it?
Well, I think it's one and a couple of things that are missing because of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, while trying to knock it out was the good option. Put a Path down was another one, and Path has been a fantastic card. I think in many ways for the meta. I don't think it's if you're playing something that gets affected by Path, it is annoying when it comes down. Just like, no.
Yep.
But I think it is certainly quite an interesting card for limiting some of those big, 2-prize, 3-prize decks and sort of keeping them in check. And I think it's been a fairly healthy card to have.
Yep.
And it disappearing and just rotating is...
it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But we are going to see something with that Future Box gets next set. So not Temporal Forces, but Twilight Masquerade.
Yeah.
Which is the one afterwards, in the form of the Iron Thorns EX that has the ability of no future Pokemon in play, whilst it's in the active, no future Pokemon in play have an ability. No non-future Pokemon in play.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like Pseudopath?
Yeah, it's just...
Ish?
Pseudopath, but it's not for the mirror.
Correct.
But I don't know how much that will really matter.
It'll be
and
interesting
it's
to
got
see.
to be in the active, so it may or may not matter.
Yep.
It'll be an interesting one. It may or may not achieve its goals. A bit like, at the moment, Spiritomb kind of works and kind of doesn't quite do enough.
It's close, but not quite there. Yeah.
I think that's the big thing with Lugia, is Lugia only actually needs to get the ability off once. And then, really, you need to target the ability of the Archeops, which is a lot harder to prevent.
Yeah. So let's have a look through this deck then.
Yeah.
So we are looking at our winner, Daisuke Kubo. I probably butchered it, and I'm sorry, but I tried, and that's what counts. Insert medal graphic here. Why did I just make myself edit that in?
I don't have to make the work for you. This is great.
I'm just doing it myself at this point. So, Lugia, I'm actually buying all the Lugias up, not because of this tournament result. I was already doing it before this, just as a side note, but I really want to play it. And this kind of helped me solidify that it's there and it's cool and it's exciting. So in the Pokemon slot, we got 4 Lugia V, 3 V-Star to make sure consistency to hit that V, which is nice. And as you say, you only really need 1 V-Star. If you get a second one, it's nice. It's mildly tanky at 280 HP, and it kind of hits okay at 220.
Yeah, well, 220's less so going forward, but for Vs was kind of the magic number for a lot of basic Vs. 220, you'd be good.
Yep.
There's a couple of EXs coming that have a bit more HP. They're sort of definitely pushing that amount.
Yep.
Yeah, there's one sat down there.
You guys can't see it probably, but there's a cheeky little Raging Bolt sat here. Well, it's a proxy. Don't worry. I haven't managed to get product and open loads already. I wish.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got those V-Stars, 220. It's nice. I think Chien-Pao is probably the biggest sufferer of that. But realistically, you want to be hitting with the 1 prize Pokemon that we're going to go to now. Well, you need 4 Archeops in this deck as 2.
Yeah. Again, that's consistency, and you've got to get ideally 2 in the bin.
This is an acceleration engine. So the V-Star says Summoning Star. You use it. You get 2 colourless Pokemon that don't have a rule box from the bin and put them on the bench.
Which, importantly, is any evolution.
Yes.
So the Archeops that you go for are stage 2s.
Yep.
But could be, as long as it's colourless, that there's no rule box, you're good to go.
Yep.
Which allows you to skip all that nasty evolving.
Yeah, it does. Although I have seen people drop the Lugias entirely and just run fossils and candies.
I have tested.
Have
with
you?
That. Yeah.
Bad.
It didn't quite work.
Yeah. Close but not there.
Yeah. Seb and I, the friend that got me into the game, we sort of did some testing with that, and I've done some testing on my own. It's surprisingly close. It plays a bit in some ways like trying to get the Baxcalibur going in Chien-Pao. Problem is that you're trying to get 2 of them going, or maybe even 3 of them, so that one doesn't get knocked out, and it's just kind of, it's awkward, particularly because it comes from that fossil starting point.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was a stage 1 coming from the Archon, Archer,
If it was a stage 1, it would be insane.
it'd be dumb.
There'd be big problems.
Maybe it only does 1 special energy if it's a stage 1. That's kind of okay.
I don't even know because it's.
You'd have to have 4 on the bench to be able to do the same thing that 2 do now.
Yeah, but the fact it's from deck to play is. And then that's kind of where its strength lies, is that you don't really need a draw engine at all. You just need enough draw to set up attackers.
Yep.
And then in many ways, you only really want like a couple of cards in hand, because if you've got a 10-card hand, you've probably got energy sat in your hands and you can do turn attach, and then you kind of go, I can't do anything with the rest of these.
Yeah, of course.
So Lugia does have the sort of...
Weird. I don't want to draw my deck, but I kind of do.
I want to draw enough, but not too much.
Yeah. Yeah, so, 4 of those Archeops in there. And then probably one of my favourite additions, 3 Minccino and 3 Cinccino from what will be Temporal Forces.
Yeah, and they are...
Yeah. Well, Minccino has Call for Family, so in a pinch, we're okay. Like, we can pull out, I don't know, the Lugia Vs or even more Mincinos, or the 2 Snorlax that are also in here, the ones with the thumping snore, the 180 damage ones.
Yeah.
Or the not that we want the Luminion on the bench, but Call for Family's in there on the Minccino, which is really, really nice.
It is probably one of my favourite sort of attacks on a basic that you don't really want to necessarily be using, but if you end up... I don't really know what the category for that would be. Nice, short attacks on a basic that you could use but don't really want to.
I think it's more of a thanks for that attack.
Yeah.
Like
that's a better.
It's a thanks for that. It's a useful. Didn't really want to do it. Cheers.
Yeah.
It's like when you no, I'm not. No, I can't say that. Anyway, the Cinccino. The reason this thing is so good at the moment with Lugia is obviously the Archeops can. You use the Lugia to get the Archeops to accelerate energy onto the Cinccino, which has a 2 colourless attack that says this attack does 70 more damage for each special energy card attached to this Pokemon.
Is it 70 more?
No, 70 times.
70 times. Yeah, I was going to say,
sorry.
wait, it has a base?
No, it's 70 times.
Yeah.
So even with the DTE, it's still hitting for 120.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. And you can accelerate 4 cards a turn to it with that two Archeops on the bench.
Yeah.
And a turn attach.
And it's colourless, so any special energy you want.
Which is mental.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. Speaking of special energy, this deck runs 17 of them.
Well, it makes sense. You don't really have much need for anything but...
No, but 17 specials is crazy. It's got 4 DTEs.
Which makes sense.
4 Jets.
Which makes sense. There's a good switching option, moving stuff around.
4 Gift.
Which makes sense. That's your draw. Yeah.
3 Mist, which is the new one.
Mist is a really fascinating energy. Obviously we're talking about it here. The prevention of effects of attacks is interesting for preventing devolution and a couple of other bits and pieces. Sableye and Roaring Moon.
Yep. Tina's Star Requiem as well.
I say Star Requiem in the same vein.
Yep.
So we could see that going into a lot of the sort of decks that we're more familiar with, like Gardevoir might put 1 or 2 in just to sort of put on the Gardevoir and be like, okay, you just can't like knock it out by the same ways. It does also prevent TM devolution.
Yep.
So same thing for Gardevoir and also for Charizard, just to say, I don't need this to attack with, but you can't set up that Devo play.
It's there to keep me safe. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. 3 Mist Energy, 1 Therapeutic, and then 1 V-Guard. The V-Guard's interesting because you attach it to the Lugia itself, for example, and all of a sudden it's 310 HP into other Vs.
Yes.
Which is
so big.
It's huge, particularly into Tina. Tina just can't one-shot it without Star Requiem in it. And even then, if you manage to put a Mist Energy on it, you can't one-shot a Lugia as a Tina anymore.
Yeah.
If you've got Mist and then the V-Guard.
Yeah, it's too big.
It's kind of crazy, right? Like, because Star Requiem just doesn't work because it's an effect of an attack. And V-Guard goes, I take 30 less damage. Get wrecked, kid.
Yeah.
Unless they have a choice spell on it.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's worth... I mean, it may be worth putting back in.
I don't think it is. For a one-off V-Guard, maybe not.
It just depends how much Lugia you end up with again. It's... Yeah.
My boy.
It might be back.
Well, it just won nearly a 3,000 player event, so I'm gonna call it back.
Yeah, I'm gonna cope a bit and say it's Japan. It's best of one.
All right, everybody,
Please no.
get your Miraidons out. Let's go.
Well, on the subject of Miraidon, as getting rid of Lugia, it's not just lost the path as its blocker, has it? It's lost Flaffy.
Yeah. Well, let's finish the rest of this list.
Let's get distracted.
Let's cry about second place, which is really cool as well. And then we'll talk about that. Anyway, so the trainers in this, just real quick: 3 Iono for disruption, 2 research to get that early draw on if needed, 2 bosses orders, 2 Serena, which is quite nice to be able to discard those Archeops and things like that early because we lost Professor Burnett with rotation. Yeah. So you don't have that ability to just rip them out of the deck and go from there.
And it's a pseudo boss as well, isn't it? But for V's only.
For V's only, yeah, which is nice.
If people are still running Tina, and I think unfortunately it might not be hanging around for long with a lot of the Lost Zone engine. I don't know. They seem to be having some problems.
The Lost Zone does, but Arc Tina still is
still kicking around.
The one of Jacques,
which makes sense.
Just get those Archeops out of the thing, so you can Ultra Ball them away. It runs 4 of them.
It does also fetch your V-Stars, right? Because it's any evolution, isn't it? And then it also fetches your Tintinas. Yeah, so you kind of have lots of utilization for that.
Which is kind of cool. 4 Capturing Aroma, standard in pretty much every Lugia list ever. 2 Great Ball. Which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
Double Great Ball? What?
It's so weird to think that, yeah, we're going to have Nest, Ultra, Great, Pokeball.
Master Ball.
Yeah.
Of which it is in this deck.
I think I'm not 100% on Master Ball as
before we get there, it's got 2 collapse stadiums in it. There you go. Trainer's done.
Done.
You're done. You can sit down here for a minute. That's the list. Kind of crazy. Master Ball, go.
I think Lugia might be the list that it makes the most sense in, but there are obviously, if you've not seen any of the new A-Spec cards, you're allowed one of them, and in the same way that you're allowed 1 Radiant.
Yep.
Which, on a side note, to get distracted before I even start.
There we go. I might just call this episode Tangential Tangents.
Yeah, how big of a tangent can we get on?
And how much more can we tangent off in the next 25 minutes or so?
Can we get on a sufficiently big enough tangent we end up back at Lugia?
Okay. Master Ball, go, start.
And all I was going to say was that the presence of Radiant and A-Spec and it's just another it's not bad, but it is slightly confusing. It feels like there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not the end of the world. There is a distinction between the two, but
if we look at we were talking about this yesterday actually. If we look at or Saturday or whenever it was, we were looking at with the introduction of A-Specs, Ancients and Futures. We've got Ancient Pokemon, Future Pokemon, A-Specs, Radiants, Vs, V-Stars, some V-Maxes in Regieleki.
Yeah, they'll still be around.
EXs, Terra-type EXs, which are a different kind of EX, but still an EX.
Yeah.
All in rotation at the same time. That's 9 different kinds of Pokemon that have some level of interaction specific to that kind of Pokemon, which is quite interesting to see.
And the Terra-type's so easy to miss.
Yeah, the amount of people that lose a Charizard on the bench to a Greninja is unbelievable. Yeah. It's like, no, Charizard doesn't take the damage. They're like, what? It can't be bench sniped. What do you mean it can't be bench sniped? It's a permanent Manaphy for itself.
Yeah. Or try and set up a Kyogre. You can try.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, the Terra typing is really cool. For those who are interested, the Terra typing is as long as this Pokemon is on your bench, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks, both yours and your opponent's. Which is interesting, because a lot of people probably don't see the yours bit. So I wonder if there's some kind of play in there. I might have to do some digging. Do some finding out.
The big one at the minute would be probably is it 20 damage from Drapion back to your own bench? But that's not a problem we have for long.
The Dragonite.
Dragonite does 20 as well.
Yeah.
Is Drapion 20 to one of yours, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What else? I don't think there's anything else.
I think they're the big two.
That's pretty much it. Nobody else cares about anything else. Anyway, Terra typing bad for you. No, bad for your opponent, good for you.
And they're both rotating, right?
Let's not talk about that. Well, no, actually, we're supposed to be talking about rotation. That's the whole point of it. God damn it. So, yes, Lugia, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Master Ball, only good in this deck?
Maybe. I think that the other options we've got are Prime Catcher, which I think is probably, if I were to say there's like a default pick, that might be it.
It's cross switches in one card.
Yeah.
Huge.
And, you can play an Arven or an Irida and fetch it because it's an item.
Yeah, that's disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's very, very accessible. There is something that I've seen as a tech in some of the Japanese Roaring Moon lists where they've put the Darkrai V-Star because Darkrai V-Star returns an item.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, here's another Prime Switch. And just fire it again.
Kind of disgusting.
That's basically 2 itemized bosses. So you still have your supporter open and then you can do your switch. So you can saves Vitality and then do that. And then the next turn, Vitality again, and then make another switch.
Yeah.
Which is, powerful, to say the least. Is it Hero's Cape?
The 100 HP
100
for Hero's
HP,
Cape.
yeah, is big. There have been some lists that have been running that with Goodra. It's finally making a comeback.
Let's go, baby! My little Goomy boys, like all the siblings. Oh, you can't look. My little Goomy boy, he's coming out of his Pokeball. He's ready to go. And that looks inconspicuous. Oh my god, he actually fits in this ball. Ish. Look, the boy. He's slowly coming back out of his scale. Anyway, it's not even him. It's just the Goodra V.
Yeah, because he's not present, unfortunately.
It's kind of sad.
Largely because Escape Rope's gone.
Yep.
So there's less easy ways to switch it out on the active when it's got its Rolling Iron going for that damage mitigation.
Yep.
And then you put that cape on it, and it's tanky. And then its V-Star power is heal all damage, which includes the health given to it by that cape.
What is it? It's 280 base, right?
I think so, yeah.
Its Rolling Iron reduces it by 80.
Yeah.
So that's 360. And then you add a cape on it, it's 460 HP.
Yeah.
So something Charizard stands no chance outside of boss, right?
Yeah.
Like it has to boss around it. But even then, you're three hitting it, basically. Because they hit you once, you're like, okay. They hit you again, you're like, I'm still not dead. Then you heal everything. Then you hit them, and by this time you've already killed the Charizard and half. Yeah. And then they've got to do it all again. Yeah. It's crazy.
That Rolling Iron could be a really interesting one to think about. And I don't think it's going to be one of those decks that sits at the top of the meta necessarily. Mm-hmm. But I think it will be an interesting one in the same way that we've got a number of those at the moment that kind of you'll play occasionally, and they're there to sort of gatekeep almost. You have to deal with this because otherwise, if you can't deal with it fast enough, it's not hitting you hard, but it's going to hit you consistently, turn in, turn out,
and annoyingly.
It's just going to set a tempo and go, are you fast enough?
It's one of those things that we call them gatekeeper decks, and you pulled up on the point there. I love that term. I genuinely think it's a really good term. I think it summarizes some decks really, really well. It's never going to win an event, but by God, you've got to beat it to win the event if you want to.
Well, I think that's the thing with those gatekeeper decks. The assumption that they're not going to win is almost dangerous in and of itself, particularly in the current meta. Mm-hmm. Like, if you were to tell me that Clorf Electrode was in a final against, I don't know, what's another one that's not necessarily quite like
Goldengo, right?
Goldengo, or Ente Valiant, or like some of those decks that like aren't big, are kind of sitting around the 3-4% meta share, maybe not even.
Yeah.
But they're there at every event. There's some people who do well at them consistently. Yep. You tell me, they got these as the final, or the top 8 consisted of all of these like smaller
jank decks.
They're not even,
but they're not jank.
Yeah,
but compared to normal meta, I guess they are jank decks.
They're kind of the like B, C decks.
Yep.
Not the sort of D tier rubbish that I play.
We'll get onto that in a bit. So yeah, we're going to see the Goodra sort of come out, much as we've seen, like, I guess, the Lugia. Funnily enough, we didn't see it in the top 16 for the Champions League. No. It didn't show up. Just really quickly running down what we did see, we saw a couple of Lost Box Sablezards. We saw 3 Charizards. We saw 1 Future Box. So that's the Iron Hands, Iron Leaves, Iron Crown list.
Yeah. The Future Box is an interesting one. I can see it, But it's one of those where I think a bit like the early list that we saw from Raiden at the start of the last meta, everything costs quite a lot to attack within that deck.
Yeah.
It's not a sort of easy deck to necessarily get rolling. And I think that it may need some tech, or maybe some balance, or may need just some finding of the exact right balance and stuff to get it going. In the same way that we saw Raiden eventually put the Flaffy in, and then it sort of solved some of Raiden's issues, and they stopped using the Regieleki VMAXs and started just kind of refine that list in. I think we'll see something similar in the future. We may see something printed for it. We may see a future energy or something come in, and that may solve some issues as well.
It might count as 3 of any colour. Or
as I say, because a lot of the future stuff is similar to the older Team Plasma stuff, right? And there was a Team Plasma energy that I can't remember what it did, but
it did something.
And we may see a future in an ancient energy or something along those lines. Just to
with the future box stuff, they have got access to Techno Radar, which is one of my favourite cards.
Techno Radar's big.
It's VIP on steroids. Like, sure, you have to discard a card for it, but when your entire deck is future Pokemon, it's VIP on steroids at any point in the game. Like, it's not just turn 1, which is kind of crazy. And I think a lot of people, the more we see, like when Twilight Masquerade comes out and that sort of stuff, we might see that introduction of yet more future labeled Pokemon have an uptake in the amount of that we see at the events. Ancient Pokemon very much more about tankiness, that sort of stuff. Future's very much more go fast, gotta go zoom zoom. I guess much like how Society and all that sort of, God, that's very deep, isn't it, for Pokemon? But no, like we always made stuff that would last forever in the past, and it was reliable and it was just there. Nowadays, it's everything's thrown away really quick. It's one use done kind of thing, and I think that's I think Pokemon have done a really good job of summarizing that. It's the same sort of thing.
It's bizarre,
weird, but clever. Anyway, so yeah, 1 future box, only 1 ancient box as well.
What have they counted? Because ancient is interesting with the stuff that we're getting post rotation. So at the moment, the big ancient is pretty much just Roaring Moon.
It's the 1 prize Roaring Moon.
Yeah, post rotation we're getting a 1 prize Roaring Moon, which is fascinating for its sort of damage scaling towards the end game, and it does good damage as soon as you've got enough ancient stuff in the bin. It's also relatively tanky, isn't it? For us,
it's got 140.
Basic. Yeah, so it's 1 prize basic, and the ancient booster capsule for that extra 60.
200 HP now.
200 HP, for a 1 prize is big. There's the Great Tusk, which is fascinating because there's been some archetypes about that, sort of for mill. For just 2 energy, if you played an ancient supporter,
which there's only 2 of. They're literally Explorer's Guidance and Vitality. They're the only 2. So you're in a 4 of those. They've split those out. So there is a Great Tusk in that ancient box list, but there is also a Great Tusk list separately on its own. That also made top 12. It came 12th.
Oh, wow.
Ancient box came 9th, which is cool. 3 Snorlax. Stall.
just
die already.
To be fair, Snorlax Stall isn't. Snorlax Stall is basically just abusing how much people are greedy.
Yeah,
it's people. I mean, we're going back to that sort of deck construction, but people are taking so many consistency and setup options that they're kind of skipping out on switching and board state options. And as a consequence, Snorlax has place. The more switching options you run, the less you care about it potentially, and the less
or if
impactful it has.
Only run attackers, right? Like that's also a thing. If you don't run any support Pokemon because they are an attacker themselves, you don't care at that point. It's interesting. Notably, all 3 of these are a different version of Snorlax Stall. So the first version that came 3rd is running the Chi-Yu for the mill.
Yeah, because Crabominable
goes
rotates, but the Chi-Yu is incredibly similar.
The second one is running the Chi-Yu, but it's also running the Mawile and the Manatine from Astral Radiance, which you don't even know what that card does.
As I say, I remember seeing it.
Yeah,
but
so it's an Echoing Horn.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So colourless Echoing Horn, but it's either player's bench, the discard to either player's bench. Yeah. So if you have, for example, you need that Rotom draw for whatever stupid reason, you could pull that back. or if you want their 2 prizer back on the bench, or maybe they get rid of something that can't attack or retreat, you can pull it back on the bench. Sure, you lose the Mantine, but you don't care. You're just going to boss around it and pull something else up.
Yeah.
So that version came 8th. And then the last version, which I think's incredible, like, it's funny, is Noivern EX plus Squover, and not Nestash Squover, Obsidian Flame Squover. Who needs a Chi-Yu when you've got a 60 HP basic that says 1 colorless, it's called Nicked Nibble, is the attack. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck.
I mean, it works.
That's it. Done.
That's a Pidgeot V in the bin.
Crazy, right? Like,
yeah.
But that also runs the Mantine. And that runs 2 Jet, 2 Mist. Because then you don't need a Jirachi if you can just mist onto the Squover.
Yeah, Jet makes a lot of sense. Just if you're only running 1 energy for colorless and just need that for your mill, just to close games out, then
and then you've got the Noivern EX in there for the Covert Flight.
Yeah,
like it doesn't run any colored energy. It literally only runs 2 colorless, and it's to stop, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's basic Pokemon,
which can just lock the game out in the same way that we've seen, Mimikyu occasionally. Just, what have you got? I've got a Mimikyu, and that's all I need. Unless you've got a Shred type attack, then good luck. On the subject of which, Ancient does get the single prize Koraidon, which has a shred attack.
But that single prize Koraidon that single prize Lost Box just does nothing against that Noibat.
Yeah.
Noibat's actually a really good call. Like, in the current meta, single prize Lost Box, useless.
Yeah. I think that Noivern's a fascinating, control option and sort of tempo option.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. Because it's got the protection from basics, or is it can't play, is it supporters and stadiums?
Yeah, that's the second one. Yeah.
Which is another just interesting control and tempo option, and being dragon, it's not going to worry about type weakness or anything. You just sort of have that ability to lock your opponent's game state down, and then it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing if they can't do anything. If it takes you 27 turns to win, but they do nothing for 27 turns, then
you still
win.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, that's kind of crazy, interesting. Those 3 versions of Snorlax are in there. Then we've got a single Tina Lost Box. Seen it teetering off. We have, however, got double Arc Tina, which is, I think where Tina's probably going to end up sitting, because Arceus can accelerate to it so quickly that you can get those attacks off really, really quick. And you're hitting for 280 on the Tina. You don't want the Requiem. You don't need it because you're Starbirthing. So that's pretty interesting. But then my most interesting list, and we're going to get through this super quick because, wow, we've talked for ages already, is second places. Arceus Vulpix. Arceus Vulpix V-Star.
Yeah.
How cool is that? Bye-bye Path. Hello Vulpix. Another one that's sat
also
behind me. That one you can kind of see. So the second place list is Shintaro Fukui. Fukui. Good luck, me. It'll be on the screen. Just read it. They are running a 4/4 Arceus V-Star V-Line.
Yeah.
Good. It's a good attacker and it's consistent. It's fine. They've also got a 2/2 Alolan Vulpix V-Star. The Alolan Vulpix is really useful for its Snow Mirage attack because this attack's damage isn't affected by your opponent's active Pokemon, by any effects on your active Pokemon. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Pokemon that have an ability.
Which is so many things.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nearly everything has an ability. Anything worth playing has an ability.
No, yeah, there are so many things that have an ability that you don't even really necessarily think about. If we go back to Miraidon itself has the ability. Your Raikou has an ability. You wouldn't. Chempao has an ability, so the entire deck's shut down. If you go mad and you've put in the or you try and attack with the Baxcalibur
ability,
yeah.
Cramorant ability. Charizard, Radiant Zard,
all your Radiants,
EXs, every Radiant, they've all got abilities, except the Heatran. I think the Heatran's the only one that doesn't have an ability. But it's crazy, right? it just sort of goes, okay, cool, now Path's gone. All the abilities are going to come out to play, which means I can come out to play. And that's really cool. I like Vulpix. Vulpix are really pretty Pokemon.
And it's a 160 shred, which is a helpful number and gets around a lot of problems that you might have. And the V-Star on it is potentially good damage.
It's okay, but when you're running the Arceus, you don't use it.
You're probably not going to use it, but it could be one of those where if you've not needed it and it closes the game out, it's present. Mm-hmm. It's better that it's there than it's not.
It's kind of cool, though. I like it. I like it a lot. But so, yeah, they're the Pokemon line. It runs Greninja as well, obviously. We then run 7 Water, 4 DTE, 2 Mist, 2 Medical Energy, and 1 V-Guard. So the V-Guard, again, stops the Vulpix from dying to Tina V-Star.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's just short. It stops it dying to anything else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 270, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Just short.
And the Medical Energy is when you attach it, heal 30 damage. It's nice. Reasonable. It'll do. Since Vulpix's attack is water colorless, you might as well put some of it on with that. But in terms of supporters and trainers, we've got 4 Boss, 3 Research, 2 Iono, 2 Colrus, 2 Churro Scenario, 1 Sharon's Care, 1 Judge, 1 Eri, which is the new one of the new supporters, 4 Nest, 4 Ultra, 2 Lost Vacuum, 1 Rod, 1 Switch, 1 Prime Catcher, and 2 Lost City.
Eri's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a worrying too much about it card, but Eri's...
So for those of you that don't know, Eri says your opponent reveals their hand, discard up to 2 item cards you find there. That's scary.
I don't think for like the Vulpix deck, that's necessarily that bad. It could get rid of their Prime Catcher, or could get rid of things like that. If they're just holding on, they're waiting for an evolution.
Yep.
You can get rid of search options. You can get rid of things like that. Where I think it becomes particularly scary, potentially, is for Snorlax, and having the ability to just discard 2 switching options out your hand.
Yep.
So if you're setting up and just saying, I think one of the mistakes that people sometimes make into Snorlax is worrying about tempo, and you're going to draw slowly.
Yep.
Just you've got 30 turns to win the game, so don't worry about the normal where I've got like 4 or 5 turns and then they're going to take all their prizes. Like, they're not taking prizes. I can draw every card in my deck I own myself and draw them all again, and then that's fine.
You get to cherry pick what you need to win the game.
Yeah. But their ability to just say, okay, like I'm slowly setting up, you've got like 12 cards in hand, 13, 14, 15 cards in hand, and they just go, yep, okay.
I'll take that, thanks.
I'll take that, yeah.
It's kind of scary. But yeah, it looks like quite a diverse meta that we've seen so far coming out of that, Charizard's not necessarily reigned supreme. In like, it did well. Like, we've got 3 out of 16 places. Its highest place is 4th. Charizard's still scary. It is most represented in format.
It does get a really interesting tech in the form of its A spec, in that it can use I've forgotten what it's called, the belt that gives it the
Maximum Belt.
Maximum Belt.
Yep.
So Maximum Belt is 50, I believe, extra damage for EXs only. So a bit like a Choice Belt, but it's more damage, but it's only against EXs.
And there's only one of them in the deck.
And it's only one of them in the deck. Not that you'd probably run more than one necessarily, but what it does allow you to do is early on, sometimes Charizard can have these weird like setups problems where, because the way its damage scales based on your opponent's prizes, sometimes Charizard will get there. We have a Charizard in play, you'll be ready to go, and then you hit for 180 and it doesn't actually knock anything out.
Do anything, and then it dies.
Or they hit you back, and then you've knocked out a 2 prize over 2 turns, and then they've done enough damage to knock you out, because it turns out if you're splitting the health of Charizard over 2 turns, it's not as bad as if you've got to do it in 1.
It's a lot more palatable. Fun fact, none of these top 3 were running Hero's Cape, Maximum Belt, sorry.
No.
One was running Hero's Cape, which is the lowest ranking one, and the other 2 were running Prime Catcher.
And I think that we're going to see a lot of Prime Catcher as default, and I think Prime Catcher is just an incredible option, but it's just it's an interesting choice for Charizard to have potential there, just to say into some of the decks in format. I guess the thing is that if we're seeing more Lugia, obviously you don't really have to worry about it. If we're seeing Arc decks and Tina decks and Vulpix, and you've kind of got to make a judgment call there. So it's in the situations where it's useful, it's great, and it gets you going. It lets you take the tempo lead.
Yep.
in the situations where you're not against those kind of decks, it's completely useless. And I think that's the tough thing about it, is that it does have the sort of subset of matches where you could play something and they don't play any EX.
Yeah, and I think at the point where Vs and VMAXs and V-Stars all rotate out, at that point it's useful.
Yeah.
Like, we might see single prize lost boxes or single prize ancient boxes, future boxes, whatever we come to at that point, start taking more prevalence, which means it's maybe not all the auto or default choice, but it has the potential to be a lot more of an instant choice to take that maximum belt after rotation, which is going to be interesting to see exactly what we come to and where things settle and what other ace specs they potentially print. Because let's be honest, they're not just going to print them in this one set.
Well,
we've already seen that.
Well, yeah, so we're seeing one from the set after that is
unfair.
Stamp.
Yes, it is the unfair stamp. It is stupid.
So
dumb.
Unfair stamp has. I've had an interesting thought about. I don't know if it will be good enough, but unfair stamp combined with something like Arbok could really
put you on one card basically.
Yeah. And you have a very strong ability to just on turn 2, if you can set that attack up and get that off, just sort of shut down. Because lots of decks can deal with being on one card.
Yep.
But how many decks can deal with being on one card on turn 2
Yeah.
is a smaller number to get re-established.
You just got to hope you top deck that Iono or something like that, or the research or whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. I guess we'll leave the Champions League there and move on to sort of rotation stuff now. And we might finish with Hear Me Out rather than do it in the middle. I'm just very conscious that, you know,
we're doing well on time.
We're going to be here for hours, mate.
Well, it's a big topic. I think you could probably carry on discussing this with Beth every week all the way up until
rotation,
and then afterwards.
Yeah, we absolutely could. And it's quite difficult for us to be able to try and summarize exactly what we want to talk about in this hour-long episode. Which is why this one's probably going to be a bit longer, but that's okay. So if you're in it for the long haul, good luck. I love you all. So yeah, rotation coming around is interesting, and the amount of things that we are getting for it are interesting.
Yeah.
We lose Path, Rope, Clara, Raihan, Flaffy, Vip, all Fusion, Fusion Strike, Rapid Strike, Single Strike, all gone.
Mew might finally
die.
Yeah.
Might. They're going to reprint it.
Don't say that.
I can see it now. They're going to reprint it.
We're going to get Future. It's just going to be conspicuously similar.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know which would be worse, if it was Ancient or Future.
Ancient will be tankier. Future will be faster.
Yeah, but Future would have the ability to have like a power tablet sat on the bench.
Also, Future would have access to Techno Radar, so let's hope that they do it in Ancient if they're going to do it at all.
Yeah.
Although they can accelerate to it with the they have designed Future and Ancient really well.
Yeah,
I genuinely think they do.
I'm very much looking forward to building around both.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I'm very much leaning towards the Ancient stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're just easier lists to put together and they have a bit more of an option there.
Yep.
I think the Future list, when they get refined in, could be very strong. Just they've got a lot of free energy attackers and not great. They've got one spectacular energy option, and then after that, it's kind of do you have enough energy in play? Can you get it all in the right place?
Their ace spec is dumb, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got a little Miraidon to accelerate, which is great. If you've got Iron Crowns on the field, if you've got 4 of them as well, it does 80 damage, which is solid for like a turn 1 attack. 1 energy, accelerate 2 energy from deck to wherever. That's cool.
That'll take out a lot of basics for, you know, 70 HP basics are going to be everywhere, particularly because
Poffin
will accelerate those to the bench or to play.
Yep. And then all of a sudden it's now dying to Miraidon, providing you can get double Techno Radar off or Nest Ball as well, and yada yada yada, and then all of a sudden, you know, that's where that sort of Venn diagram of decks sort of comes back into play, and we see where everything falls. But once you've done that, the only other thing you've got is the ace spec, the Future Accelerator, the one where you can attach an energy card from your deck, from your bench, discard, to each of your Pokemon in play.
Which
that are futures.
I've seen people sort of talking about it as being like a, you know, it's an amazing energy acceleration option, and it is, but it does have the big caveat that you've got to get enough energy in the bin fast enough, and you probably want to be using it on turn 2.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're kind of awkwardly sat there going, maybe I do 80 damage again. And that assumes that you've got, is it well, you'd have to have a lot of leaves in play to even really be
Yeah.
thinking about doing enough damage.
You
right?
have to have 40 Iron Crown in play. Sorry, 4 Iron Crown in play to do
Yeah.
the extra.
Yeah,
sorry,
Iron Crown.
120 damage is,
Yeah.
isn't it? 120 all total because it's 20 per Iron Crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to get like a good amount of damage, you're then like competing with a Cramorant. But you slightly beat a Cramorant, but if you fail to get one more Iron Crown in play, because realistically, do you really want 4 bench spaces filled up by
Damage buffs. Probably not.
I mean, they do okay damage themselves at that point, but as soon as you've used one, then your damage starts. Yeah, like it sort of has that problem, and I think that balance for future. Whereas Ancient, Great Tusk, I think we'll see. I mean, we have seen the mill archetype itself, which is interesting. Building around that or using it as an option. There were some of the streams that I saw for this event. A couple of people were just playing the Ancient toolbox decks. Got that set up very early. It's 140 HP. Put a tablet on it, and it's 200 HP.
Mm-hmm.
Really tanky. Has a good non-milling hit, but just early game, just mill 4 is a fantastic get yourself started if all else fails. The Koraidon's really good.
Yep.
And then there's just some good tempo going into the single prize and. Single prize Roaring Moon and the regular Roaring Moon we've already seen. Like you've just got a good set of attackers that offer you some options.
I think the sort of one bit in the future box is Iron Hands.
Yeah, Iron Hands is kind of
scary.
It's already.
It's already scary.
Iron Hands already is really format warping. But it's not. Because the format's so wide and it's a bit awkward to get enough energy on there, it's currently kind of only really seen in a couple of places. Lost Box can just about get enough energy on there with a couple of gates or turn attach over a couple of turns, and it's kind of a bit awkward.
But now you've got that one prize Miraidon.
But Excalibur can get there, and then you've got one prize Miraidon, and you've got the ability to get another energy back, and then you've got your turn attach, and then you only need one Mirage Gate, or you need a lucky generator, or we may see some problems arise with Iron Hands.
The list that came 14th was 4 Iron Hands, 3 Iron Crowns, 2 Miraidons, 13 Lightning, 3 Gift, and then it was running 4 Research, 4 Arven, 3 Iono, 1 Morty's Confidence, 4 Techno Radar, 4 Electric Generator, 4 Counter Catcher, 2 Nest Ball, 1 Reboot Pod, 4 Booster Capsules, 2 Heavy Batons, and a Town Store. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
This is my kind of list because there's only two one-ofs, Morty's Confidence and the Reboot Pod. I love consistency. I love having access to that card. Everything else is a 2+. It's kind of scary.
And that does have a really interesting interaction into Lugia.
Well, it one-shots Lugia for 3 prizes.
Yeah, so we just one-shot the Lugia for 3 prizes because of Type Week, which...
Well, type Week plus crown damage plus...
Yeah, so you do need a couple of crowns, right?
Yeah, but you only need... Well, technically you need 1. Because it's 140.
Yeah, it'd be 140.
Yeah, or you just need the booster capsule, and then all of a sudden it's dead. But for the first 2 Iron Hands, you put the Heavy Baton on there, and then when that dies, you just move that energy to one of the other Iron Hands. It's kind of got play. It's kind of scary. It's kind of cool.
Also,
I'm here for it.
Iron Hands gives you the time for Lugia to go after the Archeops, because usually the problem is that you can't really afford to boss the Archeops out of play against Lugia because they're single prizes. So you boss them, knock them out, but then whatever attack it was they were using before still has all its energy on, so it hits you again.
Yeah.
Then you boss the other one, knock it out, and then whatever attacker is still floating around, and then you've got to knock that out. But if you're taking them down as 2 prizes, it's not necessarily so bad because you'll be on sort of an even 2 prize trading. And then if you can take out, you've got better options there potentially.
It's kind of the new format is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very excited to see where we go. I'm very excited to see what we lose, in terms of decks, what can't adapt quick enough to be able to stay in the meta. I'm also incredibly excited to see what decks have already been in the meta, have fallen out, and are going to come back in, much like Lugia. I'm excited to see what these extra cards here and there bring to the table, what this one little package might bring to an entire archetype of a deck. What I'm not excited to see from a personal preference point of view, and everybody's going to hate me, not everybody, but I hate control decks. I hate decks that say, we're not playing the game, I'm stopping you from playing the game. Because to me, personally, like, it's just not how I like the game to be played. Like, the worst thing about Snorlax isn't that it's Snorlax, it's that I can't do anything to stop it unless I build around it. Like, and I have to, in certain decks, build quite aggressively around it to be able to cope with it.
Yeah.
And I know it adds that extra element of you can't always go fast to decks, and you have to be careful sometimes. But for me personally, Snorlax's version of control I find dull, boring, and uninteractive. However, the mill version of control I find quite interesting, but I still don't like it.
I think sort of Trio or Great Tusk or any of those sort of mill archetypes are a lot more interesting because they're at least, I guess it's passively trying to win the game versus actively trying to win the game.
Yeah.
They are effectively going after, they are going after a different resource. They're sort of more going after like the deck. And it's a bit more like going after hit points in another game, but you're not used to being attacked there, but certainly, God of War players that aren't careful can get themselves Iono'd. Not that anybody will ever have that happen to them.
No, absolutely
not. Like it's certainly there's like they're actively trying to do something, and so the fact that they're counter catching and bossing around you and not necessarily taking prizes, sure, and that feels a bit better than them sort of completely locking you down and just saying no, you can't play the game. In the same way that before in the last rotation we saw Vikavolt control and Galarian Wheezing.
Yep.
Both of those just sort of locking you down and just sort of saying, good luck, you're not doing anything for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
Or potentially the entire game.
Well, it's like when you've got like the Vileplume that was item locking people and stuff back in the day. Yeah, it's it's one of those things of I don't like how it plays. One, because I don't like to play it because I find it very dull playing it. I like interaction with my opponent in that sort of respect. But I think it's healthy to have it in the game because it makes decks have to tech for certain bits.
Well, I think it's only really arriving because decks are sort of unhealthy enough that it can play that way.
Yeah.
If we didn't see, if we saw more switching options and like Snorlax wasn't such an issue, then it wouldn't turn up, right? And for a long period of time, it didn't. The meta.
And then they printed Counter Catcher, and then all of a sudden, Control's now back in a big way. And it's literally from that one card being printed, people went, "Oh yeah, you can just build it like this," And people go, "Oh, I can."
Yeah.
And then I win. And that Marwile. Oh, why did they print the Marwile?
That's been around for a while.
It's lost Origin, and nobody did anything with it. And then people realised, oh, people are greedy, and I can just put this in, and it wins me the game.
And it's bizarre that was... people had sort of vaguely spoken about maybe doing something with it, and then we saw Snorlax for a good couple of months, then people went, oh yeah, I can put that in my deck too. Like,
have you seen this new card? It's not new.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Nobody's seen it before. No, we did. We just ignored it.
Yeah. We just went, that's Control, and I'm playing Lost Box or something, and that's really where it's found its home, and it's still bizarre to me that what we got like this sort of aggressive energy acceleration, going to rip through my deck and set up a bunch of stuff and really sort of put stuff in the Lost Zone and set myself up, and then Control. Yeah.
I hate the fact that Lost Box can be so degenerative that they can play every style of the game.
I like playing the engine, but the engine is in the same way I think Lugia is. It's effective because it's kind of unfair.
Yeah. Which is interesting, but we have to have these things in the meta, else it just becomes a solved format, and then it's boring, and we get back to the position where there is only 3 or 2 decks that are in meta that are ever going to win an event, and that becomes more dull than anything else.
Yeah.
So as much as I don't like Control, I think it's a really good part of the meta because it makes decks have to adapt, and then we start seeing things come out of the woodwork that you wouldn't expect to see usually.
And I will say that if you're playing the right decks into Control, you can have a really interesting and fantastic matchup. Yep. I played one Control matchup at Liverpool, and it was probably one of my favourite matchups of the day.
Crazy.
But really good player playing Snorlax deck, really engaging deck, really interesting to sort of have that back and forth after the game because we knew we were only going to get one done because we had about 4 minutes left after that. Because it went down to last couple of cards of both of us. I had one prize left.
Yeah.
Now, part of that was because I was playing the Roaring Moon, And with Roaring Moon into Snorlax, you can do something really silly and deliberately knock yourself out to
So they
turn
have to
off.
take prizes.
So they take 2 prizes and Counter Catcher stops working.
Yeah.
So they have periods of being able to Counter Catcher and periods of not.
Yeah.
And you can kind of mess with them. And a lot
Which
of
is kind of fun.
Yeah, a lot of Snorlax players don't know what they're doing when you go, yeah, you've taken prizes.
It's kind of cool, to be fair.
Yeah,
I like that.
you can do all sorts of silly stuff by forcing, like.
That's cool, actually. No, I like that. That's pretty solid.
Um,
Yeah. So we've got control. We've got Zoom got to go fast. We've got tank coming in,
and we've got things that benefit from Path being gone.
Yes.
Like, coincidentally, the last poster on the wall over there.
Oh, look. You can't quite see it, but this is the Chempo.
Which has been doing really well. It's not seen, or didn't see tournament results in the same way it's been doing at sort of smaller events, but it has been sort of doing like really good numbers, sort of more generally in those early Japanese formats. I think particularly, it hits hard, and there's nothing to stop its ability thinning your deck and getting you set up and getting all that energy straight to hand, and so it just kind of again is like a really good tempo sort of mid-range thing. It's just its only big issue at the moment is it's a bit squishy almost, which is crazy at 220, but
I mean, like, I don't know, people probably taking in Bravery Charms or maybe even the Hero's Cape. I mean, they're not, they're running Prime Catcher. The point is that there are options to be able to get around that and make it a bit more tanky, but,
well, I think the other thing is that Prime Catcher in there is probably the go-to, because you can fetch like an Irida, and then you can Prime Catcher up like a Mew-EX or a Luminion or a Squawk or something that's lying about.
Or even that Manaphy and then cancelling Cologne, and then Greninja's back online, and all of a sudden we become quite tasty. And Prime Catcher is great because it replaces that 4 spots for Cross Switcher, now down to 1 for Prime Catcher.
And you can probably go like 1 boss, 1 counter, 1 Prime.
And then you got your switches.
1 Pokemon catcher. Just run all 4.
Just for the catches, why not? Got to catch them all, certainly. So bad.
Got that.
All right, let's have a really quick couple of minutes talking about decks that we think could do well in the meta that haven't been seeing results as of yet. Mostly the 2 that I want to play. So we'll talk about Raging Bolt.
Yeah.
Let's just start with Raging Bolt, right? Really interesting card. Here it is on this side of me. It is a 200. Sorry, would it help you, Sam?
No, it's just like, I'm trying to remember which side it is when I've watched the podcast. But
it's definitely this.
You said it was the other side earlier. But...
It's 100% this side. Ignore Ben. He's bad at this. I think. I don't know. Anyway, Raging Bolt, 240 HP. Really good for a basic.
Really big.
It's 1 attack, like its first attack's solid. Like it's a Squawk and Seize for an attack. Sure.
It falls back into that category of that is nice, but it's like a turn 1. Like, actually, this is good. And at 240, it's not impossible that things don't one-shot it, but a lot of things don't one-shot it. All really struggle. And if you've got that Ancient Booster Capsule, 300. That's like basic capsule. Like, you can Arven on turn if you're going second and be like, there's 300 HP.
Yeah, literally Arven, Nest Ball. And a capsule, and then all of a sudden 300 HP. Oh, by the way, I'm going to discard my hand and draw 6 more. Like, what? And then it's got its second attack, which I really, really like. Its energy's a bit weird. The 1 lightning, 1 fighting. But when you've got Stardust Vitality, you don't care because you can just accelerate to it, and that's fine. You accelerate 1, and then you attach the other. Done. All of a sudden, it's ready to fight. But Bellowing Thunder is 70 times damage. And works the same way Chien-Pao does. Chien-Pao is 60 times, and you can discard any amount of water energy from any of your Pokemon. This is 70 times. You can discard any amount of energy from any Pokemon.
Which is really important because it's like anything from anywhere, and it's that bigger multiplier. So I think we're going to see a lot of interesting trying to set that up, like ways to get enough energy in. Because Chien-Pao has that like Excalibur option. And
it searches it out with its Chien-Pao, then accelerates it with Excalibur. Sure, that's cool. How do you search it out with Raging Bolt? Well, you're using Earthen Vessels, mostly. Let's be honest, it's Earthen Vessels and Energy Search if you really want to be an idiot.
I guess get something knocked out and letter.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We might see Letter. Like, Letter might be the play. Genuinely.
Radiant Jirachi. And there we go.
Or the energy. But that's genuinely a play that we could see. And then it's like, well, what accelerator do you pair it with? Because you need to be able to accelerate to it. Well, not to it, to other things. So do you put the Baxcalibur in, and then all of a sudden you've got to super energy retrieval those back to hand to be able to get them back out again the same way you do with Chien-Pao? Just play Chien-Pao.
And well, also you then have the weird sort of mixed energy pile problem where you're accelerating waters, but you don't need those to attack.
Weird.
Yeah.
But then the other options are things like Gardevoir. Like, it lets you bin it, and then you accelerate it back from the bin, and then you're okay. You don't need to get it back to hand.
The Gardevoir option has because we were talking about this the other day, has some fascinating sort of potential there for setting up things like Drifloon or Screamtail, because you don't care about the amount of energy on them. They just need enough to attack. And then what they really care about is the damage counters. So putting the energy on them to discard it, to put the energy on them to discard it, like once they're set up, they're then a terrifying single prize attacker. But hitting really, really hard. And particularly the Screamtail, I think just having that ability to just say, I'm going to hit that on the bench, or, you've got Raging Bolt for active, and you've got that sort of which way you're going to try and hide, because it's not going to work. Yeah,
I think you've got quite a nice sort of... That's why that's what this deck over here is. I've built, the Gardevoir version, the first sort of draft. And the Ancient Booster Capsules also double up for the Screamtail, so all of a sudden it's now hitting for 280 on bench, which is literally stupid. And it's kind of crazy, very, very terrifying, and that's really, really cool. And I think that's a way that you can look at playing the deck, and it, you can even accelerate to it with Sarders. And then all of a sudden...
there's I've been looking at trying to put a list together using Sarders and potentially the Lost Zone engine. Just for Mirage Gate and getting energy back, and then Sarders. Sarders is kind of an interesting one because Lost Zone is losing Clara and Raihan, and then there's pretty much the only deck that runs those two. Like, other decks occasionally run them, but let's be honest, it's mostly a lost box card.
Of course.
And you've got some options there. It would be a bit weird to play a Sarders, but it's kind of a bit of a Super Rod and a Mirage Gate kind of vaguely sellotape together, and it lets you run...
Unless you also draw 3.
Unless you draw 3, which is the same amount of effective draw as a Cold Res. You're just not putting 2 in the Lost Zone.
Just not seeing... it's weird, isn't it?
It's like... It like fits surprisingly closely. It's just the problem is getting enough in the Lost Zone to get to 7 and balancing that. And I don't think it'll work out, but it's something that I've been sort of looking at and trying to think about the numbers on.
I like to think Sada is like a jigsaw piece that you need to put in a puzzle, but you're trying to put it in upside down.
Yeah, that's
like,
pretty much.
It fits some way, you just can't quite figure out how. And then somebody comes along and turns it into a Colress or flips it over and goes, look, it fits. And they go, it fits.
Yeah. And I think that, unfortunately, I don't think it will quite pan out for Lost Box on its own, just because you've got too much energy reliance. You've got to probably bin like 4 to hit that 280, maybe 5, and there's just a bit too much. So Sarders and Mirage Gate is fantastic. That's 4. Turn attack takes you to 5, you're away.
Yeah.
But doing all of that every turn is a bit awkward.
Yeah.
You've got, on the Ancient theme, Sandy Shocks. Now, it does have the problem that they've got to have taken 2 prizes. But then it's a fighting energy back to itself every turn, which is just 70 damage.
And another Sada target.
Yeah. And you kind of want another Sada target, or 2. You just energy to those, bin all 4, energy to those, bin all 4, and just keep doing that.
It's definitely interesting. I'm going to try all of them because I really want Raging Bolt to work. I think it's really cool. I think it looks cool. It's visually... I call it the giraffe with its head in the clouds, because that's literally what it is. It's a lightning giraffe.
Yeah.
And it's a literal cloud around its head to illustrate how tall it is. Sure. But
so
it's...
You've done a nice proxy with the actual art. I've just...
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's not the weird half art. It's the nice full art.
I've just scribbled a giraffe and written Raging Bolt in.
I just put a giraffe rig in instead. And just go from there. Maybe that's what I changed them to. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that comes, where it sits. Obviously, it's not done very well so far. It's not in top 16, which is crazy. But I think maybe it's not solved yet, and I think that's probably one of the big things. People are still trying to figure out where the exact acceleration engine is, how it sits on it, whether it's worth it, is it too many pieces, yada yada yada, all that sort of stuff. So
I mean, the whole cycle for that, because obviously there's I've forgotten what they're called. There's the Raging Bolt, and the other two.
Gouging Flame and the Walking Wake.
Yeah. So Gouging Flame is interesting as well.
That's really good.
Yeah.
230 HP basic.
Yeah, and it hits for 260.
Yeah.
It doesn't require much. And is it fire energy?
Yeah.
And a fighting, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Which I'm pretty... Do we keep Magma Basin?
Yeah.
Because that's... Yeah, as I say, like, there's potential there. Because I guess the other option you've got for fighting acceleration is we keep Gutty Pickaxe, right?
So it's 260 for double fire colourless.
Double fire colourless.
And it can't use this attack next turn, I believe, is what that says.
No, I'm pretty sure... Is that the one that's a bit weird in that it can't use it till it leaves the active?
Oh.
Because I know there is one card they're printing which is a bit different in that it's a big attack, but it can't use it until it leaves the active, no matter how many turns it is. Unlike normal, where you can...
it is that. It can't use Exploding Fire again until it leaves the active.
Yeah, which is really interesting as a sort of variation on that thing. So we've seen tons of, just wait a turn. But wait a turn obviously can be switch into a free retreat, go again. But that's got to leave the active. I mean, admittedly, that same solution works, but you can't just sit there for a turn and go, well, I've knocked out the only thing that you had that was any threat. You've not got any energy. I can wait a turn and then knock something else out again.
Yeah.
Particularly if people are setting up stage 1s or stage 2s and you've knocked out their only one.
I think Walking Wake's probably the weakest one. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see what the meta sort of formulates that. But it's got damage from this attacks as an ability. Damage from attacks used by this Pokemon aren't affected by effects on your opponent's active Pokemon.
Yeah.
So it's a shred. There's no Mimikyu. There's no anything that prevents those effects.
Yeah.
Because abilities are effects.
I'd say it's a really weird one because it's an ability. So things that could turn off abilities could turn that off potentially. Not that I think it's relevant for anything at the moment, but there's the potential for like a path type effect.
Yep.
To turn that off. And then it suddenly doesn't have shred and it's lost a lot of its
value. And particularly when its attack is water colorless. And it says 120 damage plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, it does 120 more. So just 240. It's like, okay.
It's not a terrible amount of damage.
I mean, if you Brute Bonnet in to be able to poison them.
Yeah, so you basically need to Brute Bonnet. Brute Bonnet's probably the easiest way to do it.
So I mean, 250 after poison. It's not great.
I'll say technically there's a couple of other bits and pieces. I want to say it's a Venusaur that it might be when you evolve it. Poisons and confuses and something else.
It's a Parasect.
Parasect, yeah.
They're from Lost Origin that does that. That's pretty funny.
I think there's something else that does basically the same thing. And
it's not good.
No, I'll say basically it's Brute Bonnet.
I think Walking Wake is bad. I really do think it's bad. I don't think it's like at the moment in the current standing of the meta.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's got a place to sit compared to the other two.
The other two are obvious, easy to use, high damage beaters.
Yeah. Which is the other thing that's sort of weird, I guess, about them is unlike because obviously they're based off the three legendary dogs, Raikou, Suicune, and Entei, which in the current format of the TCG are the same, but with mildly different HP and different retreat costs. And I really liked that. Yeah. Because they were the three sort of sides of that triangle where you have to trade HP for retreat cost or trade this for that or whatever. They functionally did the same. But now these versions of them are all horrifically different.
Yeah, they're not even remotely the same.
No.
Aren't we losing...
Suicune.
Just that one rotates, yeah.
Why not the other two? Don't know. Why didn't they reprint it as an F just like last minute? I don't know. Weird.
Sneak it in there.
Yeah, so... That's I think Raging Bolt's going to be pretty solid. I don't think it's going to win. Maybe it does. I don't know, but we'll have to see where the meta sort of sits and lies down. And then the other deck that I'm interested in playing after a conversation we had the other day is Blastoise EX.
Yes, I
think it's cool.
I think it might finally see some use because the numbers on it are quite obviously like there. Just when you look at it, you go, that's a lot of damage and a lot of HP. Yep. And we've not seen it at all. Because
it doesn't accelerate to itself.
That's the big problem,
like,
right?
Charizard accelerates to itself. But I think...
that, sort of going back to the consistency thing, is like the fascinating thing about Charizard, right? Charizard accelerating to itself is so powerful.
Yep.
But Charizard having that turn where it just hits like a Miraidon and it goes, okay.
Miraidon's like, sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That tickled.
Yeah. I have 40 HP left. That's tons.
Yeah. It's yeah.
You don't have a Sableye. I don't have to care.
Maybe they start running like just Colress and Comfeys for the start.
40 HP is basically full.
I mean, it is for a Miraidon, right? Like,
Yeah, like
sure.
what are you getting hit by?
And it just 2 hits you back. But yeah, the Blastoise is interesting. So it's 330 HP. It's got an ability that says this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's active Pokemon.
Which makes it functionally, for most cases,
390? Realistic, because it's 60 plus HP essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because nothing's really going to one-shot it.
Yeah, I'd say it's 360 for a one-shot or 390. Or, like, if you start getting into, like...
420.
420. Or, like...
That'd be dumb. Just cram.
Yeah, like cramming a... Not really a dream anymore.
It's just cramming it. Oh, not this. Yeah, so 360 HP effectively. And then for 2 water energy, you can discard up to 2 water energy from your hand, and it does 140 damage for each water you discard. It does 280.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I think that's the big thing with it. It's discard from hand, and at 140 per, it's really efficient.
Yep.
So while you might have a slightly harder time getting that energy into your hand and into play,
yep.
Once it's there, it's not like Chien-Pao where you've got to be, piles of energy every turn.
Yep.
Like 2.
Yep.
Sometimes 1 will do enough damage for a lot of things.
And
probably because of breakpoints at 140, like probably the most relevant one prize would be something like Excalibur at 160. There's a lot of things that you're going to unfortunately have to discard 2.
Yep.
But 2 energy is very easy to recover.
Yeah. Energy retrieval recovers them both straight
away.
away.
To hand. Or superior is 2 turns worth, which is probably the rest of the game.
Yeah. I've been experimenting a lot with it, trying to figure out where the best sort of engine is to get stuff working. I've tried with the Excalibur. I don't like it because it feels like it's sharing the candies too much. Okay, sure, Charizard and Pidgeot share the candies, but I think you need the candies there to set up the Blastoise. So you use the Palkia to accelerate to it from discard instead, and use EXP shares on the other ones, is my first sort of thing, on the other Squirtles, so that when that Blastoise inevitably gets knocked out, the other ones are only ever a turn attach away from being able to hit. Also, the Palkia lets you set up a Greninja from nowhere if you need it.
Yeah, which is always a terrifying prospect. Particularly, I think, because people are going to be, at least early on with the meta, looking to set up because of Buddy Poffin.
Yep.
Hey, I'm going to put 4 70 HP things into play, and then
yum.
Yeah. Did you fetch a Manaphy? No, I forgot.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the reason this sort of came around was Maximum Belt, the A spec. Now, Prime Catcher is probably going to be where it settles, sure, but the Maximum Belt allows you to one-hit a Zard. Just off the bat.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
For the Zard player.
And in return, the Zard is then hitting you for
240 down to 210.
Yeah. Which is...
You're like, okay, sure, you 2-hitting me.
Yeah.
I'm going to one-shot another one.
Another one, yeah.
Oh, now you one-shot me. You don't even one-shot you at that point. Because it's only 300.
So you take out the one that's already damaged, but you then don't take out the new one.
Yep. And then it just it doesn't one-shot you at that point, unless you Rosinia's backup to put it back in the deck.
Backup's a really interesting card for post-rotation.
Yeah.
It's weird because there's a good number of targets to fetch.
Yep.
And I think that the ability to fetch the A-spec tools is good.
And special energies.
We're getting, some slightly more applicable special energies, particularly with Mist. You may not want to be running more than 1 or 2 because they're basically a really awkward to remove tool.
Or a gift.
Yeah, or a gift. They're interesting, the special energies that we've got, because they're not in that same... they're not, for the most part, sorting out energy types for you. They're just colourless plus a really nice effect.
Yeah.
And we're not really... I don't think we're going to see anybody start running Temple again. I mean, maybe we do.
Temple of Sinnoh. Maybe if Lugia comes back, that's what kills it. Not kills it, but hinders it, right?
Yeah, well, it shuts down a lot of the beneficial stuff there. It's just...
No Mist, no gift, no DTE. Provides 1. yeah, I think this is what I'm sort of looking forward to in that meta. As I said earlier, that Venn diagram of things changing and shifting and moving and
things coming back in the forwards.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Maximum Belt is the reason that Blastoise sort of came up on, I think, your radar first. And then you mentioned it to me, and I went whole hog because I really like Blastoise. I think he's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
correct.
That is correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no other way to say it. Blastoise is cool. You heard it here first. So yeah, we'll see where that comes into play. I'm gonna keep playing it just to see if I like it enough, and go from there. And I might not like it, and that's fine. I might start putting Chien-Paos in so I can rip the energy out, so I can then discard it, and then go, well, why aren't I just playing Chien-Pao?
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a problem for a lot of the energy acceleration decks. Is Chien-Pao is really good and only gets better.
Yeah. So we'll see what sort of happens with that. Have you got any decks that you're sort of interested in playing or looking at that we haven't mentioned? So we've obviously mentioned like Ancient Box, Lost Box, and stuff. Future Box. But is there anything that you've sort of looked at and gone, this might actually be good going into rotation?
I mean, there is one, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Oh, no.
I think we've mentioned most of them. I mean, I guess there's one card that we have managed to skip over in Fluttermane.
Yep.
And that is probably going to be the bane of Lost Box's existence, and is why I think Lost Box has been.
Does it kill it for tournament?
I think it might well do, at least in the short term. I think we'll see the same sort of thing we did with Drapion and Mew, where when Mew was one of the big free decks in format, you shoved one into everything. And I know at least one player who put 2 into his own Mew list for the mirror. Just didn't know, stop. And that has some massive downsides, right? Drapion's an awkward, he doesn't do anything, high retreat cost, it's pretty squishy, 2 prize liability. Whereas Fluttermane's a 1 prizer, it's ancient, right?
Yep.
So it has the potential to shove that capsule on there if you're in an ancient deck, and its attack is surprisingly okay.
Yeah, it's 90 damage and then 20 to something on the bench. And it's not even 20 damage, it's put 2 damage counters on.
Which is fantastic. Particularly, I think the deck that will probably end up abusing it the most is Gardevoir.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing there is that you then, obviously, you're shutting down all of their abilities on, it's just basics, isn't it? Is it abilities on basics?
I just clicked it and it went away. No. Just as long as this Pokemon is the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities.
Active has no abilities. Yeah, that's it. I say, because for Lost Box, obviously, it shuts down the Comfy because it's in the active. It can't use its ability. Cram still has to pay its energy cost. Radiant Greninja doesn't have its draw if it's in the active, but it can still attack. Radiant Charizard, if it's in the active, has to pay full cost.
It's so good. It's so good. Miraidon can't tandem unit if it's in the active.
Raikou can never draw.
No,
I guess Entei can't either.
Entei can't either. You can't.
You can't Tachyon bids, right?
You can't. No, because it's when it moves to the active.
Yeah.
You can't Lugia V-Star if it's in the active,
which a lot of the time they are.
Yeah. You can't. What else can't you do?
Wait. Snorlax loses block.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of funny.
No block for Snorlax anymore.
Until you retreat, at which point it does have block.
But you've already retreated into what you want to hit with.
Well,
so...
or you just... I mean, is it fast? It's not quite fast enough for Snorlax, but... Because Snorlax, you want to try and force them to penny every other turn, because they just can't keep up with that tempo.
Or to be fair, actually, you can hit 20-something else, it pennies, you hit, they either penny the thing on the bench, or penny the active, and then you're just going to put the 20 damage again back on that one, and then that's that pressure sort of adding up. So maybe it does have play. Interesting. The Fluttermane, I think, is going to come out quite strong,
but
and it's exciting.
Yeah, I think we'll see the same thing we saw with Drapion before we go off on too much of a tangent again. We're doing fine.
I keep looking this way because I'm looking at the time.
Ben said he didn't want too much to edit, so I'm just making sure that we get really distracted. And
we do need to start moving, though.
Weeks to edit.
Jesus, it's got to go out on Wednesday. And I've got a tooth out tomorrow as well. I'm going to be like under local anaesthetic trying to edit this whilst they're in my mouth. It's going to be great.
We're going to It's going to be uploaded, and the sound's all going to be gone. And
Oh no!
the picture's going to be upside down and inverted.
And I'm gonna be on screen when you're talking, and you're gonna be on screen when I'm talking.
Wrong cards will be up. It'll just be Lugia every time.
I just couldn't be bothered to edit it. Oh dear. So yeah, we've got a lot to look forward to. I am very conscious of the time. I would absolutely love to bring you back on to talk about this more in the future, or even have you with Beth or whatever, or we swap in and out, whatever, just to be able to have that conversation. I think everybody brings that sort of to different view to the table. Now, I would like to move on to our feature that everybody seems to love for some stupid reason. Have you got something prepared for Hear Me Out?
So, I mean, kind of.
Okay.
I didn't get as much time. We did speak before about going to the jank mines and finding some absolute turbo garbage. However, unfortunately, I only have sort of vaguely sensible things that I kind of wanted to say more. Do you know what? These kind of are probably underplayed.
Sure.
So in our energy acceleration options,
Yep.
we completely skipped over Xatu. And
Yeah.
I think it's spectacular, and everybody is kind of just leaving it.
Yeah.
It's psychic energy only, but it's psychic energy to any of your Pokemon. It doesn't have to be a psychic Pokemon.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big thing. So I think people are kind of ignoring that you do have that potential to just accelerate psychic for your colorless cost and then turn attach. And there's even things that run like double colorless attacks. So I'm not quite finished brewing it, but I might be playing something really cursed this week.
Oh no.
Dondozo Tatsugiri.
Oh no.
Dondozo attacks for double colorless, and if you can get 4 Tatsugiris in the bin, then that's 200 on a basic.
On a fish.
On a one prize fish, and your you just turn attach psychic off a Xatu and draw, or you Xatu off your psychics.
That's grim.
And
Also, the draw 2 is huge.
Yeah, and you can Clara or something silly like that to return a fish. You can only do that at the moment because that's rotating.
Yeah.
But I think as an option, it's really solid. I think at the moment it's massively overshadowed by Curlier, purely because Curlier takes obviously it's the mid-stage Evo for Guardi, and there's Shining Arcana Guardi, which is rotating. And there's also Buddy Catch Gallade, which I think we'll see more of post-rotation as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think Guardi's probably going to move to sort of a smaller portion of the deck.
It's going to be a toolbox, right? Like it's going to be an addition.
I think that losing Shining Arcana means you're not going to be able to do the refined Shining Arcana turns and you've ripped through 4 and only discarded 1. You're just going to curl your awkwardly and then you evolve 1. It's still a good amount of draw.
And accelerates to something else.
Yeah, it's still a really good amount of draw. It's just not quite the same.
Which kind of does lose a bit, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So Xatu was the first option, and I just say yes.
Yeah.
It's a great card and definitely overshadowed.
And I think it will probably find something at some point. It's a really good draw engine.
Yeah.
Shove stuff on the bench.
Yeah.
On the subject of cards that are overshadowed, which I guess is probably what I'm going with more.
Okay.
Revivroom. It's a draw engine.
Yes.
Again. It's...
Yep.
I guess the problem is you've got to discard an NG, and then you've basically got a Bibarel.
+1.
Yeah. Right? But it has the interesting side effect that if you've got 6 cards in hand, you've been an NG, so you've always got that 1. Whereas if you're just sat on 5, you just sort of look at your hand and go, I've got to play something. It's easier to play around 6 as well. It's just that extra card gives you a bit more range.
Yep.
And there's a lot of decks that want energy in the bin to do various things.
Yep.
Like we were talking about Soda's Vitality decks. Well, they love the ability to bin energy.
Yep.
And at the moment, pretty much everything kind of tries to do it desperately with, I somehow get energy into my hand and Ultra Ball it away, or I get energy.
Greninja.
And Greninja awkwardly does 1 and then goes...
Or an Earthen Vessel.
Yeah. You Earthen Vessel, then you Ultra Ball, and it's just a more consistent option that gives you a solid draw engine.
Yeah. It is a car engine. That is literally what Revivroom is.
Yeah.
It's a car engine Pokemon, and it's a draw engine. Good job, Pokemon. Well played.
Well played.
It works.
Perfect.
It literally works. Its villain arc is complete. But you're right. It is really good. It draws. It discards. it gets you to 6, which is a really, really good number. And they printed it with a play stamp, so clearly they think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, they would only print it if they think it's going to be usable.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that has a lot of options, particularly with the ancient stuff that we're getting.
Yeah.
Like, I think people have forgotten about it at their own peril. Like, it'll turn up at some point, and everybody go, "Oh, wow, this is new tech." And you're like, "No, you all just kind of ignored it."
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did a Paldean Fates draft.
My
Saturday.
draft was interesting.
Your draft was weird. My draft was mid.
I could go through my deck real fast.
But everybody who drafted the Revavoom did really well. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a sealed format. Sure, it's going to do really well. But it did highlight to me that I've been sleeping on this.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
it's really good.
In draft, you don't need free research.
No, because you run 40 card decks, so do not run 3 research.
Do it. You go really fast. It's great.
You deck yourself out more often than not.
Yeah, you set a hard timer on the turns.
Okay, so Xatu and Revavoom, I actually agree with you on both of those cards.
I knew they were
instant
both
win.
like they're easily overshadowed.
Yeah.
They're just too. I don't know if they're obvious, but they're just kind of sat there as like, play me. No, I'm playing
A Bibarel.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
The other thing that I think is another one for post rotation, and I don't know if it'll quite pick up enough. Swim freely, just the whole archetype.
That's not one card, Sam.
Yeah, well, it's an archetype.
How many cards are going to have to put on the screen? Like 5, 6?
Well, I mean, so I guess you start with the Finion, because that's kind of the center of everything. Right?
Okay, talk us through the Finion real quick.
Basically anything that has the swim freely attack, you've got a
Backscalibur.
as a basic one prizer that you can fetch with Buddy Poffin.
Yeah.
Which means that even if they get rid of one, you can Buddy Poffin another one. You can very easily Super Rod one back and then Buddy Poffin another one.
So bad.
And then you've got a couple of really, really interesting and quite strong attackers.
Only because you can accelerate them. To them.
And they're all, I believe they're all stage 1s.
Yes.
But they all have basics that you can accelerate with the Buddy Poffin.
Yep.
Which means that if they're not going after your Finion, you're just setting up 2 of your basics every turn, which gives you a great amount of deck fitting. You can run Irida because it's all water and that fetches your evolutions. And then
your Buddy Poffin.
Buddy Poffin. So you've got that every turn, or you fetch your... it's all one prizes and they're all pretty squishy. So you've got Letter of Encouragement as an obvious pick.
Yep.
Or you fetch Earthen Vessels, and you're just accelerating your energy, and you're just dumping energy into play. There's a couple of options. I played Wednesday this week, largely because I wanted to experiment with it, because I think it genuinely will have some legs post-rotation.
Well, it'll have fins.
Well, yeah, I guess won't have legs. It is all fish, basically. The current probably best option for the attacker is the Seal Dugong line, which shuffles the energy back into a deck and is 40 per energy that you shuffle back in. Mm-hmm. So it really quickly hits silly damage numbers. I was playing 10 energy just because it was funny to have the option to top end hit for 400. But surprisingly quickly, like turn 5-ish, you can end up with a deck that just consists of 7 water energy, 8 water energy. And then your draw engine, whatever you are running, you kind of just rip it all to hand, attach all of it, and then shuffle it all back into your deck and go, do you know what, do I need to shuffle because my deck is just 7 water energy? We know it's 7 water energy. Like,
that's
I'll shuffle it still, but next turn, oh look.
And then
Yeah, and because it allows you to clear your hand really quickly, any of your draw engines become really efficient at that point because you're completely clearing or like keeping 1 or 2 cards like a boss or something, and then you're
disgusting.
There's a Sea King, which hits really quite hard.
It's Zacian.
Yeah,
it's a one prize. It's a Shining Arcana Guardi.
Yeah, it's a Shining Arcana Guardi as a one prizer.
Water
Fish.
Yep. Dumb.
Shining fish.
Literally dumb. With the Finion. Dumb.
Yeah, and then same thing. That doesn't shuffle the energy back, so you've got to run all the same stuff you'd run with Gempel, basically.
A superior energy retrieval. Even to super ride it back into the deck or something like that as well. But that's fine.
But then again, you do have things like you fetch like your superior energy and letter in the same turn, 7 energy. Then you've got all your energy out your deck, all in play. Really quickly, you can fetch all of that.
Yeah.
And then you do the same sort of thing that Charizard does, where it's worth thinking about Charizard for a second, because it doesn't have much of a draw engine in most of the Pidgeot versions. They're just kind of like tutor 1 and find exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And then like
find that boss.
Draw 1.
Yeah.
And then like
tutor again.
Yeah, it's like okay, I've seen like, and you've done that same sort of deck thinning, or it's a bit like the Palkia decks that we saw before.
Yep.
Kind of pretty much before Iron Hands made them a bit
dead,
a bit very dead, dead for free prizes, dead. Yeah.
Nice Mew VMAX you've got there.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kill it. Don't mind me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I missed those. And then there's another attacker, and I can't remember what it is, but it attacks bench.
The Seadra.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, so
it hits...
It's like, what, 1 water? And it's 20 per water?
Per water, yeah. I know it's 20 per water, and that's interesting as well, because it's pretty interesting or pretty easy if you're running 9-ish, 8-ish, to start looking at, like, goodbye Mew EX, goodbye Luminion, goodbye Squawkabilly, like, just out of nowhere, just like...
Well, it's not. The thing is, it's not out of nowhere, because it's a stage 1 Pokemon.
Yeah.
So you have to telegraph it.
A bit. But how many people will collapse into you to get rid of it in time? Like, if people know the gimmick of the deck, then they will do, but you don't necessarily have to run it. You just run the big, hard-hitting attackers that hit you in the face.
Yeah.
And all of them really quickly start to put out damage numbers that is one-shotting 2 prizes, and it gains a lot from Poffin, and it gains a lot from sort of some of the things that are rotating, and I think it could be one of the better single prize archetypes that we're going to see.
Do you know what you do have? Sorry, as an as an extra, as a stage 2 to that is the Kingdra.
Yeah.
Oh wait, it's rotating. But for now, you have the Kingdra that does 40x per water.
Yeah.
And when the active Pokemon's knocked out, you can move any amount of water to that Kingdra.
To the Kingdra, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That, I want to say was that in an old Playstamp set? I can't remember. Like,
they did the fancy art of it.
They did the fancy art of it, yeah. I say, it's all round, it's a really interesting single prize archetype. And I certainly think it's probably underutilized at the minute and gains a lot. I mean, the other thing we may see in that regard, because it's kind of disappeared, is Wings of...
United Wings.
United Wings, yeah. I always want to call it Wings of Union because that's the Japanese name. That's what it was in things. The problem with United Wings...
It's got a cap, right?
Well, the problem with United Wings is, A, it's got a cap, and B, it all dies to Iron Hands, and then has a problem knocking it back out. Whereas Swim Freely just says, okay, you took a 2-prizer, I take a 2-prizer. Like, it's not even that far for it. Like, on the far end, you can go all the way up to 400 energy. Like, it's legitimately one of the decks that may run enough damage to one-shot a Blastoise and just go, okay.
Yeah. Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
or one-shot.
Cool.
Like, it may even put enough energy into one-shot a belted Goodra, and nobody's going to expect, like, I'm rolling iron, and I've put the 100 HP extra on here, and it's like, okay, it's fish time.
It's dead. Go fish. So that yes, I agree. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a Jesus Christ, we're nearly at 2 hours. I don't think any of those I disagree with. So it wasn't really a hear me out. It was more of a here, listen. I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
but you did say that coming in, to be fair.
Yeah, I didn't get enough time to go find some real
jank.
Well, also, I wanted some stuff that
is going to get overshadowed, right? Like, I'm not going to talk about Swim Freely that much.
No,
Beth's not going to talk about it that much.
I don't think anybody's going to like win a tournament with it or get particularly big results. Like, you might see some like small things, like
a cup.
Yeah,
like it might win a cup. But it's interesting.
I'll try. I'll do my best.
Do you know what? I will schedule a cup and I will make it 2 men only. I will concede. I'll get Kitty to run it so me and you can play in it. We'll stream the cup.
Yeah, and I will still somehow lose.
Even with me conceding.
We've signed the paper wrong. Wait.
Judge. Oh dear. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree with all three of those things. they're really cool. It's nice to have a different viewpoint on the podcast. I'm not saying mine or Beth's are boring or consistent or whatever. Me and Beth have a very particular format in how we do things and stuff. But it's nice to have another voice that can come in or has come in and kept me talking for 2 hours. Which is
fun editing.
Yeah, literally the longest podcast we've got. Beth's going to kill me. I literally said before she went away, I'm going to try and keep it under an hour.
Yeah.
But I can't promise anything because it's Sam. And when me and Sam talk, we talk.
Yeah,
We've been here till like half midnight before and going, oh, look at the time.
Yeah.
The event ended 3 hours ago.
Wait.
Hang on a minute. I need to eat. Okay, cool. So, in that respect, we've talked about quite a bit. We've dilly-dallied, we've tangent, we've come back to some really important points. We've talked about, sort of a quick summary of the Champions League. We've talked about what decks I'm looking forward to playing, what you're interested in potentially playing, or looking at what rotation's going to do and what it's going to be. It's going to be quite interesting. And also we got to know Sam a little bit more, which was super nice. So we got to sort of get a rough idea of where you came into the hobby, which is cool. Before we sign off, we have one sort of thing, and I want a quick fire answer from you.
Oh, no.
If you are to get a ticket to EIC, what do you think you might play?
Probably one of the ancient toolbox decks.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the Great Tusk heavy mill variant. Probably
The Roaring Moon one.
Roaring Moon.
Sure.
Probably two of the two prize Roaring Moons, and then a couple of the baby Roaring Moon, the single prize Roaring Moon, and probably do include one of the Great Tusk just because it's a good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some list along those lines, and I think it's just it looks like it's got a bunch of good tempo, and it looks like it's sort of looks fairly smooth to play. I need to do some testing with it.
Yep.
We need to do some testing with
everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm going to try and make Blastoise work over this next week. It's probably not. I've got so many decks I want to play. I actually do want to play Lugia. I know it's back in the meta and it's performed really, really well, and I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to play with it.
I certainly think we'll see a surge of it turning up just because everybody will be like, yes, I can play it again.
And then the
I can get those
Miraidons
cards
come
back out the folder.
Yeah, and then Miraidon and Nine Hands come out and they go, nope.
Yeah, it's just, can they without the fluffy, with the level of consistency they have been doing? Or are we going to see Miraidon doing its usual of generator,
whiff,
generator,
yeah.
Generator. One.
I might play Future Box, the 2-prize Future Box with Iron Crowns and Iron Hands. I think that's quite a fun sort of deck.
I think it's worth testing. I just have my reservation about if it's going to have too many times where it costs slightly too much energy and it's slightly too awkward to get enough in the bin. Either you'll have we had a fantastic turn, and then the turn after looks a bit rubbish, or you'll have just a tempo problem. But
yeah.
If it can solve that, that looks really fun.
It does. And then I've got Raging Bolt, or some level of Guardy Toolbox that I'm interested in playing as well. So I really don't know what I'm playing for EUIC, and I need to decide because it's in a month.
Probably Pokemon.
I will definitely play Pokemon.
That's about as far as I think.
Before we finish, this was supposed to be my look ahead to Utrecht episode. However, due to things that have happened in life, good things I might add, I can no longer attend Utrecht. So it's unfortunate. I had everything set up. I was ready to go. I was ready to start testing with Guardy loads. And then I did some adult things and bought a house. And unfortunately, we complete on our house the day I was supposed to be flying to Utrecht. And I thought, best not leave my fiance to deal with the house on her own. And also, this thing's only going to happen once every now and then. Utrecht's back again next year. Yeah. I might not get a ticket, but I'd rather just be at home and be able to sort of cope with everything. So there is that, which is exciting. So unfortunately, there will be no Utrecht roundup from myself in terms of what I did. However, we are going to next week on the podcast look at Utrecht and the results and what could have happened. I was talking to somebody earlier and they said, "You're not going to Utrecht?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, they're going to have to rewrite the script as to who makes it into top 8 now." And I'm like, "Oh well." So yeah, it was kind of funny, but yeah, we'll do a rundown of the tournament results, and then I think we get back to talking about rotation, and we probably look at decks that we focus on and talk through that. So that's pretty exciting. Other than that, Sam, thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you for having me on. It's been fantastic.
It's been an epic podcast. If anybody has made it this way through, I'm going to be impressed.
I say good luck going through all of it.
If I make it all this way through, I'm going to be impressed. Maybe I just leave the one camera view on and say, imagine your own cards or something.
Just link them in the description.
I think that's more effort. I've got a template set up and a key.
Also, it only works on YouTube. If you go links in the description,
on Spotify. Or Apple Podcasts or something, yeah. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining us. I would more than happily have you back, and when we've got our 3-camera setup going, have you as a third guest if you want every now and then. You definitely bring some interesting conversation and thoughts to the table, which is super nice.
Thank you very much, and I'd love to be back.
Awesome.
I'll see if we can get me a green screen card, and I can just sit there holding up nonsense next time I'm back.
Yeah, we'll just spray the back of the screen, and you just sit there and you go, look at the card, look at the card. That'd be horrific. Don't, because I'd have to keyframe that, and that'd be nightmare.
I'm just going to wear green instead.
Oh no. Oh dear. Yes, thanks for everybody for listening at home. We've been Attached Pass. This is Sam. I've been Ben, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye. Now I can go and hit the stop button and cry because I've got to edit 2 hours.
Nah, it's 1:58. That's not 2.
2 hours.
It's the same. 2.